Hey guys, I'm Aya and welcome to my video. Today I'll be showing you guys how I do highlighting. I know I just said highlighting, but I don't really get to that part until the 20th minute and 45 seconds. So if you're not interested in shading, go ahead and click on the 20th minute. I did a video a while ago. It was about how to shade, specifically how to shade the face using multiplied layer blending mode, and it got so good feedback from you guys, and you asked if I can do a tutorial about highlighting or how I do my highlighting for the face. For this video I will be doing that. However, I kind of learned how to shade the face in a slightly different way, so I would like to share it with you guys first and then maybe show you how I do the highlighting afterwards. So instead of just showing you how I do my highlighting after I do the shading off camera, I thought I would just show you the new way that I shade. And I don't know, I'm still learning and I kind of want to see how things work out or which way I want to go for later in my drawings. So I decided to show you that as well. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, I kind of composed my palette for the to-go shading shades and they are pretty awkward. They're not what you would think they would be for shading, especially the skin. You would think of maybe a brown for shading the face or a darker shade of beige if you were drawing some kind of a fair skin tone. So I did this portrait recently. It's kind of a slightly cartoony and it kind of opened my eyes about the skin tones and how the shading on the face have some weird reaction to the face. Sometimes it looks purple, sometimes it looks orange. So I kind of took that into account and I decided to actually apply that to my cartoon style drawings as well. So let's get started. I first would like to share with you my brush that I use for this. It's a brush I got from Brush Galaxy. It's called the X Flawless Soft from the X Top 10 brush set. I will try to leave a link for that if you would like to check it out. And I would use some of these shades, maybe we will add more as we go, and I would use a lot of the smudge tool. So let's get started. I will first start by adding a new layer on top of all of the layers that I created, and I will set it to multiply. If you don't know why we chose multiply or what it does, I suggest you take a look at the previous video. I have a video called What Multiply Does, so go ahead and check that out. And I will slightly improve on that video in a way. I would start by using this kind of a fuchsia shade, and I would see where my line art is. My goal is that I want to ditch the line art. I want to replace some of the line art with shadows. I want to define the face very well with the shadows so that I will not need to draw a black line for the nose, for example. So I would do that. I would go ahead and very lightly brush around where I think my nose is, and well, not my nose, and then start adding some random lines. We have a little bit of shade around the nostrils, or in that area, and slightly on top of the eyes. And then we kind of have a little bit of a creasing here, which kind of shows how or shapes how our cheeks become. So we will just do that and slightly drag it down to define the chin. You see the chin line right there and right there. So this is where we want to shade, and sometimes your character might start looking old and that's totally okay. As you go and as you start blending, everything will turn to the way it is. Tell me guys if you're interested in the palette that I use. Maybe I would try to link it or something. And a little bit underneath the eyes, where typically a person would have a puffy eye, and a little bit here in the area, and a lot underneath the chin or the top of the neck, and then here. If you have a little bit experience with makeup, this might look a lot like contouring your face. I would shade where the hair is casting shadow over the face, and then we will take our smudge tool and start to kind of work this around. I would slightly drop the opacity to maybe about 70% and see how that works. Start working out the shade that I've just added, and the technique that you use for smudging is pretty much If you would like an area darken, you would drag the dark color to the area that you would like to darken. If you felt that you added a lot of darkness and you would like to lighten things up, you would drag the area that is not shaded or that is lighter towards the darker area, and you will find that it suppresses the dark shadow that we have. And this takes a little bit of practice and kind of becomes a second nature. It really is fun. I didn't used to shade this way. I used to use the airbrush, but it kind of made everything look like an amateur. I am an amateur, but it really was obvious that its effect is not really the smoothest thing. It is tempting to use it since it looks very, very smooth, and then you start adding layers and then you end up with your artwork looking a little bit muddy. So this is why I shifted to this Exfolious soft brush. I believe a lot of people would have it available. Maybe you already have something like it available. You just have to do a little bit of searching. And then the shadow underneath the eye. So as I told you, I was doing this cartoony portrait commission piece for someone, and we're just used to knowing what colors we want to use, and we never really observe the real color that are shown on our faces whenever we're taking a photo or something. So I suggest you take a reference photo and challenge yourself. This was my first commission, so I was kind of just putting in all the effort that I can put. Didn't want to finish it. I wanted it to look perfect, not just for the client but for me as well, as some sort of an exercise. You know, when you're doing it as work for someone, you kind of want it to be perfect, and you don't just settle for the first thing that you do. So you try and try and try, and that actually made me discover lots of things, because normally I'm just in a rush. I want to finish the artwork because I'm excited to color. I'm just in a rush. So this forced me to kind of put in the best that I have learned so far. I'm still learning, but for now it forced me to do this the right way, at least the right way for the current stage that I'm in. I would do the ears the same way. I'm alternating between the brush and the smudge tool. It's pretty easy. Whenever you just don't feel that things are smooth, you go ahead and smooth it out a bit more. Underneath the lips, above the lips, underneath the nose, and slightly the bottom of the nose as well. And you have to play with the opacity of your smudge tool to achieve the right thing. For now, I changed it from 70% to about 54%. By the way, you can achieve exact percentages if you just put your finger on the opacity slider and slide it outwards and start dragging up and down. It will become really slow that you can control it. And then you don't want to pause right here and have this all clear skin tone color. You want to slightly add more color and then blend it and work it out until you reach this part, which is totally highlighted. You don't want to darken these two areas right there. You want to leave them kind of bright, and we will get to that when we're doing the highlighting. I'm dragging, I don't want the magenta line to be showing, so I'm dragging it and taking it upwards a little and then downwards a little. Try to blend everything in as much as you can. If you did mess up a little bit and add a little bit more color than you want, what you have to do is take your eraser and set it to airbrushing soft blend, or just any gradual airbrush that is not just a line. You want it to be smooth, and start just removing, maybe lower the opacity a little bit. I have it at about 70%, and start lightly brushing top of the color that you added, and it will clear out. I would use this sort of a lavender gray, dark lavender gray. It's a purplish gray color, if it makes sense. And I would start adding some lines again where I added the magenta lines around the corners of the eye and underneath the nose. around the nostrils, and again link it with the area around the mouth right here. You can totally add the gray and the magenta at the same time. However, I do not recommend this when you're getting started. You need to know kind of what you're doing to see what each step is doing and adding, so that you understand everything. You're not just rushing it. I'm saying that from an experience because I rush things all the time. Actually, for the first time, got to see the difference, what happens if you don't rush. And it's really rewarding, so it's worth the wait. You see that we didn't really draw the nose. We're just kind of sculpting the nose with the shading. And again, don't worry, it can get a bit muddy, but it's always fixable, and there are multiple ways you can fix it. So just don't really bother about that at the moment. Just think of it as a practice in seeing what works for you and what doesn't. At some points when you feel like you've added a little bit more gray, go ahead and add some magenta. I just have to say, digital art is a lot more rewarding than traditional art. There are tons of ways you can fix things if things go wrong, which isn't really the case with traditional art. Kind of have a limited number of times where you can erase and just keep your paper looking good. And some people might be really discouraged if their sketch is not looking something nice. However, in digital art, you can always tweak things to make them look like they never happened, which is cool, honestly. I used to hate digital art. Now I'm like mind blown, like this is really cool. Why didn't I try digital art a long time ago? My character here is about 20 to 24 years old. If I would want her to look older than that, I would leave a lot of lines, like add a little bit more lines underneath the eye, make the eye look droopy, make the nose more droopy as well. It really depends on the age that you're portraying. If she was a baby, maybe I would just have no lines at all. Now I feel like she's wearing a lot of foundation. But it's okay. Just keep working it. I really don't like the eye color, so I would just attempt to change that. I did it really quick because I wanted to film the tutorial. So now I removed the line art from the nose, the chin, and the lips. And I did that for a reason. I want to better see where things are going and what I want to do. So for the lips, I picked this purple shade right there. And I'm gonna give her a little bit of a smile. I'm smudging using my current brush, which is the same one as the sketching, the X Flawless Soft. And I'm trying to spread this line into the upper lip and the lower lip just a little bit to give the lip an interesting dimensional look. Again, it's very makeup basics. Something I learned from Likelihood Art is that she always makes her upper lips darker than the lower lips, which I find really does give a cool effect and a realistic one as well. You can always make shadows for different things on different layers so that your shadows won't climb on top of the things that you don't want them to, but I didn't do that. Obviously, I was in a rush trying to film this before my toddler just breaks into the room, and I need slightly more gray for, let's just do this on another layer because we will totally regret it if you don't. I added a new layer underneath the shading multiply layer, and I'm using a dark brown color, almost looks like black. It's not, I'm not sure what they call them. Yep, don't get tempted to use this one for the rest of the shading and do this lovely line. Don't just do that, leave that to shading. Go back to the multiply shading layer and using your purplish gray, start outlining where the nose is going to end. Give that a smudge, and we have a curve here. Don't forget to try to preserve it. it really is super fun to do this. It's almost like sculpting, kind of therapeutic in a way. Don't just forget to manipulate your brush size. This helps a lot, and sometimes you kind of are lazy to do it, but it just helps a ton. Saves you a bunch of unnecessary strokes. I'm sorry if this is really slow. But I kind of feel like you need to see how everything progresses in order to better gain a kind of memory. I'm not saying it's a muscle memory because you're not doing it, but kind of see how the Apple Pencil moves to create different effects. I feel this helps when I'm learning, so I hope you're finding this useful. Look at that. She's starting to look a little real. So proud. Okay, don't worry about her weird lips. We are going to get to that in just a second. Okay, sometimes when you're trying to do this, things might look a little weird. You don't know what's wrong, but it's looking a bit weird. At this point, I would suggest you ask someone, get a new set of eyes to look at your art and evaluate it, because you're staring at it for too long and it can confuse you to actually judge what's wrong with it. So definitely this helps. I'm going to add gray to around the nose. However, I'm not going to do this at the very border of the nose, because if I try to smudge it, it would just look weird and undefined. So what I will do, however, is shade the area around the nose so that when we blend it, the darkness just touches the nose boundaries. So it's blurred and still it is around the nose, defining it. So perfect, because the smudge brush kind of pushes around the paint a bit. So you don't want to do it at the line of the nose and then it pushes it around. So you get over the line, then your nose is kind of undefined. You don't want that. And now you can hear my screaming toddler. Okay, now it's time to define underneath the chin. As we did with the nose, we will not line the chin. We will just do that slightly below the actual chin line so that when we smudge, it doesn't go over the chin. The bigger your smudging brush size, the less texture your painting or shading will have. So you manipulate that to achieve whatever look you're going for. So if it feels like she's wearing a lot of makeup, maybe you should just up the brush size a bit to give her a smooth skin texture and to show that she's not wearing a cakey foundation. So if you feel like this video has been helpful to you, leave me a comment below telling me which part of this video was the most helpful for you. Tell me as well if you need me to make any kind of Procreate video tutorial, a process video, just whatever. And just maybe if you would like to support this growing channel, subscribe. If you like Procreate videos, I document my digital art journey, and for now my digital art journey is very much Procreate specific. So yeah, I just document how I improve. So maybe you would find these things helpful. So yeah, if you're interested in that, go ahead and subscribe and like the video. It's time to fix the weird, very weird lips. Okay, her lips needs a little bit more gray shading, so we would go to the multiply shading layer and give her a little bit of a gray definition right in the center. It really worked. It has a cool effect. Do you see that? Add a teeny tiny gray. Okay, for shading the lip and making sure that we don't get outside the lines, we will create a new layer on top of the lips layer and set it to multiply. It would be for the lips shading only. We want to set it as a clipping mask so we don't go outside the lips. Now I want to shade this part right here, here, and there, and maybe do the lip trick, the makeup guru are doing everywhere. Look at that, it works. Maybe we should try it in real life too. where I wanted to create a dramatic shading effect as if there's light coming from over here. So I would shade this entire side of the face just dramatically. This new shadow layer is a new layer, not the one where I sculpted the nose and the stuff, because I just don't want to mess with her facial features, if that makes any sense. And this part of his face will obviously be darker since the light is over here, and the light is coming from over there, so her hair will cast just a little bit of shadow on here as well. For last finishing touches, I will make sure that everything is blended in seamlessly. Okay, so for highlighting, I would go to every shading layer and merge them together by pinching them like that, and then I would select my eraser in slightly large setting, and I will start erasing whatever shadow I have built up where the areas need to be highlighted, and I would gradually just erase the shadow, and that would be my natural highlighting. I used to add some whiteness to the cheeks and stuff, and then I thought, like, why do that? You already have the skin tone underneath, which is pretty light than the shaded version. So do you see that, the difference between this highlighted cheekbone versus this side here? So let's just do the same to the other side as well. It's like you're moving your pencil parallel to the eyes, and if you feel you're not getting any results, you would just press harder on your pencil to erase harder, since we're setting the eraser to the airbrush. It's kind of a very subtle effect. Next, I would just make my eraser smaller for the nose. Just give the nose a little bit of highlighting by erasing the same way. Okay, do you see that? I hope it's obvious. And then I'm going to highlight the center of the nose. I believe it's called the bridge of the nose, and then smudge it a little bit. Now we're just going to highlight the nostrils. They're slightly highlighted as well. So now if I would like to add a glossy effect, I would select a white color and the calligraphy Procreate set and the water pen, which is automatically selected because I use it all the time, in a lower opacity, a new layer. I just like, I'm scratching and I keep trying until I find something I like. Do you see that? It's very subtle but very cool. Then I would press harder in areas where I need to add a little bit more shine. I would do that on the lips as well, to indicate like she's wearing a lip gloss or something, to see how her lips are sparkling now. And then add just a tiny little bit on her lower lips as well, and I'm pressing right here. What is very cool about calligraphy pens is that they have a thin stroke and then a wider stroke for you to do calligraphy and lettering. So if you press, it's going to get wider. So I'm start thin and just press slightly to get that effect I'm looking for. I tend to like this pen very much that I go overboard and start highlighting every single thing. However, you don't need to do that. I would just maybe add a little bit to the eye. So do you see that? Her eyes are sparkling. It's very cool. It's like shiny. And then I will do exactly the same thing. And the reason that this highlighter shows over the eyes that are drew is that I did not use white for the eye. I always use either this gray or this gray for the eyes. So they're not true white. I can add the highlighter, whatever I would like. That is pretty much it for shading and highlighting. And as I said, I keep improving every day. I keep documenting the methods that I use every day. So if you guys like this video and think it's in any way helpful, please support the channel by liking the video and subscribe, and maybe drop a comment of your favorite parts of this video, or whatever you would like to see next on my channel. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and bye.